Now I'll write the completely new story following the successful formula. If your own mother locked you in a basement for 8 years and told the world you were dead, would you let her walk free when she came crawling back? Or would you make sure she paid for every single day she stole from you? My name is Elena Rosewood, and I'm about to render the verdict that will define everything I've become. All rise, the bailiff announces. I watch from my position at the bench as every person in the courtroom stands. My hands are steady on the gavel, even though my heart is hammering against my ribs. Because sitting at the defendant's table, handcuffed and wearing an orange jumpsuit, is my mother. And she has no idea that the judge presiding over her fraud and kidnapping trial is the daughter she buried alive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started, because if you're going to understand why I'm about to do what I'm about to do, you need to know exactly what Catherine Rosewood did to her own child. I was 8 years old the day my mother told me we were playing hide and seek. Go hide in the basement, sweetheart, she said, her smile too bright, too eager. Cover yourself with that old tarp behind the water heater. I bet I won't find you for hours. I thought it was a game. I was so excited to finally have my mother's full attention. You see, my little sister had just been born 6 months earlier, and suddenly I was invisible. Every smile, every hug, every ounce of love went to perfect little Madison with her perfect little face and her perfect little existence. But that day, Mom wanted to play with me. Just me. So I ran down those basement stairs like my life depended on it, found that musty tarp, and wedged myself into the tiny space behind the old water heater. The concrete was cold against my back. The smell of mildew filled my nose. But I stayed quiet, so quiet, because I wanted to win. I heard her footsteps on the stairs 30 minutes later. My heart was pounding with excitement. She was coming to find me. Except she wasn't looking. She was carrying something. I peeked out from under the tarp and saw her dragging a heavy wooden board. Then another. Then a drill. Mom? I called out, my voice small and confused. Did you give up? Did I win? She didn't answer. She just kept working, and that's when I realized with creeping horror that she was boarding up the doorway. Not just closing it. Sealing it. The drill screeched as screws bit into wood and frame. I scrambled out from behind the water heater, my 8-year-old legs tangling in the tarp. Mom, what are you doing? I'm still down here. She looked at me through the narrowing gap. Her eyes were cold. Dead. I know, Elena. This is where you belong now. You've been nothing but a burden since the day you were born. Madison deserves better than to grow up in your shadow. Please, I sobbed, throwing myself at the boards, my small fists pounding uselessly. Please don't leave me down here. I'll be better. I'll be quiet. I won't bother Madison. I promise. You'll be perfect where you are, she said. And then the last board went up. The drill screamed one final time. And everything went dark. The first week was the worst. I screamed until my throat bled. I threw myself against those boards until my shoulders were purple with bruises. I counted the cracks of light between the wood slats. Exactly 17. Those 17 slivers became my whole world. Food appeared twice a day through a small slot my mother had cut at floor level. A paper plate would slide through. Sometimes a peanut butter sandwich. Sometimes crackers. Once, on what I think was my birthday, a single cupcake with no candle, I ate in the dark, measuring time by meals instead of sunrises. She'd carved out a space behind the boards for a bucket. That's where I went to the bathroom. Once a week, she'd slide a bottle of water through with a harsh whisper, "Clean yourself. You smell like an animal." I tried to keep track of days by scratching marks into the concrete wall with a rusty nail I'd found. But after a while the marks blurred together. Was that 100 days? 300? I lost count somewhere around the time I turned 9, or maybe I was already 10. Time stopped meaning anything in the dark. I taught myself to read in near total darkness using the 17 cracks of light. Mom had left behind old newspapers when she boarded up the doorway. I memorized every word, every article, every advertisement. I'd whisper them to myself in the dark, creating voices for different characters, building entire worlds inside my head because the real world had been taken from me. The loneliness was its own kind of death. I'd press my ear against the floorboards above and hear them. My mother's footsteps. Madison's laughter. The TV playing cartoons I'd never see. Birthday parties I wasn't invited to. Christmas mornings I wasn't part of. I existed directly beneath their perfect little life, and they lived like I'd never been born. Years blurred together. 8 became 10 became 12 became 14. My body changed in the darkness. I grew taller, the clothes my mother occasionally threw down through the slot becoming tighter and tighter until they didn't fit at all. I'd wrap myself in the old tarp just to have something covering me. Then one day, something changed. I heard arguing upstairs. My mother's voice, sharp and defensive. A man's voice I didn't recognize. Heavy footsteps. Lots of them. "Ma'am, we have a warrant to search the premises." My heart stopped. People. Other people were in the house. Real people who weren't my mother. I started screaming. I screamed with everything I had left, my voice cracking from disuse, my fists hammering against those boards like I had 8 years earlier. "There's someone down there." I heard a man shout. "Get those boards off now." The drill sound again, but this time it was salvation. Screws backing out. Boards clattering to the floor. Light, real light, pouring into the basement like liquid gold. I covered my eyes, the brightness physically painful after so long in the dark. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered. "Is that a child?" I was 16 years old, but I looked 12. Malnourished, filthy, my hair matted into impossible knots. I couldn't speak. When the EMTs tried to carry me up the stairs, I fought them because stairs led up to my mother, and my mother meant the dark. The detective who found me was a woman named Sarah Finch. She stayed with me at the hospital while doctors ran tests and therapists asked gentle questions I couldn't answer. She was the one who told me what my mother had done to the world above. "Elena," Detective Finch said, holding my hand like it was made of glass, "your mother told everyone you died. There was a funeral. A grave with your name on it. She collected life insurance money. $85,000. I couldn't process it. While I'd been scratching marks into concrete walls, my mother had been cashing checks from my death. "She's going to prison," Detective Finch promised. "Catherine Rosewood will never hurt you again." But that's not what happened. My mother's lawyer was good. Very good. He argued that Catherine had suffered from postpartum psychosis that never resolved. That she was mentally ill, not evil. That she'd kept me fed and alive, which proved she still had maternal instinct even in her fractured state. The jury looked at my mother, crying so prettily in her defendant's chair, dabbing at her eyes with tissues, and they saw a sick woman, not a monster. 2 years. She got 2 years in a minimum security facility that was basically a spa with locks. And I got sent to foster care because Madison, my perfect little sister who'd lived her whole life not knowing I existed, was declared the priority child. My mother would get her back the moment she served her time. I bounced between 7 different foster homes in 3 years. Nobody wanted a traumatized teenager who woke up screaming every night, who couldn't sleep without a light on, who flinched every time someone raised their voice. I was damaged goods. Then I met Dr. Patricia Morgan. She wasn't my foster mother. She was the psychiatrist assigned to my case, mandated to see me twice a week to monitor my integration back into society. But where everyone else looked at me with pity or disgust, Dr. Morgan looked at me and saw something different. "You're brilliant," she said during our 4th session. I'd been telling her about the newspapers I'd memorized, how I'd taught myself vocabulary and grammar in the dark. "Elena, do you understand what an incredible mind you have?" I didn't. I'd spent so long thinking of myself as the thing my mother threw away that I'd forgotten I could be anything else. Dr. Morgan started bringing me books. Real books, not moldy newspapers. She brought me textbooks on law, on justice, on the court system that had failed me so completely. "If you're angry about what happened," she said, "channel it. Learn how the system works. Then change it from the inside." That's when I found my purpose. I studied like my life depended on it because, in a way, it did. Dr. Morgan helped me get my GED at 17. She pulled strings to get me into college on a full scholarship. She became my legal guardian when I aged out of the foster system, giving me a stable home for the first time since I was 8 years old. "I'm not trying to replace what you lost," she told me the day I moved into her house. "But I can give you what you deserve, a chance." I devoured law school. Finished undergrad in 3 years, law school in another 3, passed the bar on my first attempt. By the time I was 28, I was a practicing attorney. By 32, I was a judge. The youngest in my county's history. Dr. Morgan was in the front row the day I was sworn in. She was crying, but they were proud tears this time. "Your mother tried to bury you," she whispered as she hugged me. "Look at you now. Look at how high you've risen from that grave." But my mother hadn't just buried me. She'd moved on, served her 2 years, got Madison back, and started over like I'd never existed. She even changed her name. Catherine Rosewood became Catherine Hartwell, married some wealthy businessmen, and settled into a comfortable life in the suburbs. I kept tabs on her. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. I needed to know she was living the life she'd stolen from me. And she was. She was PTA president, volunteered at Madison School, posted perfect family photos on Facebook with captions like "blessed beyond measure" and "grateful for my beautiful family." Meanwhile, I worked 70-hour weeks, went home to an empty apartment, and still couldn't sleep without every light on. But I had my courtroom. I had my gavel. I had my power. And then, 8 months ago, a case landed on my desk. The state versus Catherine Hartwell. Charges of insurance fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. My hands shook when I read the file. After her wealthy husband died suddenly, Catherine had tried to pull the same scam again. Declared Madison dead. Filed for life insurance. Except this time, someone had gotten suspicious. Someone had dug into Catherine's past and found the sealed records from my case. Found the pattern. Madison wasn't dead. She was alive and well, hiding in Catherine's basement. My mother had done it again. She'd locked her daughter in the dark and told the world she was gone. Only this time, Madison was 20 years old and she'd managed to get a message out through a crack in the foundation before Catherine could collect the insurance money. I should have recused myself immediately. The moment I saw my mother's name in that file, I should have handed the case to another judge. But I didn't. I wanted to look her in the eye. I wanted her to know exactly who was holding her fate. The trial started 3 weeks ago. I've watched my mother sit at that defendant's table every day, her lawyer arguing the same mental illness defense that worked so well the first time. She's older now, gray hair styled perfectly, expensive clothes that her dead husband's money bought. She looks like someone's grandmother, not someone who steals childhoods. She hasn't recognized me yet. Why would she? The last time she saw me, I was a starving 16-year-old with matted hair and hollow eyes. Now I'm Judge Elena Morgan, 34 years old, composed and professional in my black robes. I've gained weight, cut my hair, learned how to hide the scars. But today that changes. Today Madison testifies. I watch my sister walk to the witness stand. She's beautiful in a fragile way, her hands trembling as she's sworn in. She doesn't know who I am either. Why would she? As far as Madison knows, her older sister died before she was born. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Liu, approaches with gentle questions. Madison, can you describe what happened after your stepfather passed away? Mom said we needed to be careful with money, Madison says, her voice barely above a whisper. She said if people knew how much insurance money we were getting, they'd try to take it from us. She said we needed to disappear for a while. And where did you disappear to? Madison's voice breaks. The basement. She said it would only be a few months. Just until the insurance paid out and we could start over somewhere new. I grip my gavel tighter. The courtroom is silent. How long were you in that basement, Madison? 14 months. Tears stream down my sister's face. I counted every day. 423 days in the dark. The prosecutor pauses, letting that number sink into the jury. Then she asks, Madison, did your mother ever mention having another daughter? My heart stops. Madison looks confused. No. I'm an only child. Your Honor, the prosecutor says, turning to me. I'd like to enter into evidence the sealed juvenile records from 2008, case number J47293. The State versus Catherine Rosewood. My mother's lawyer objects immediately. Those records are sealed, Your Honor. They have no bearing on this case. I could sustain the objection. I could keep my past buried. But I don't. Overruled, I say, my voice steady. The records are relevant to establishing a pattern of behavior. The prosecution may proceed. The prosecutor projects the documents onto the courtroom screen. There's a photo of me at 16, skeletal and staring at the camera with dead eyes. There's a diagram of the basement with measurements of where I'd been kept. There are medical reports detailing malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, developmental delays, and there's a birth certificate. Elena Catherine Rosewood, born October 15, 1992. Madison gasps. She's staring at the screen, then at me, her eyes wide with horror and recognition. We have the same eyes. The same cheekbones. How did I never see it before? Your Honor, the prosecutor says quietly, can you confirm the identity of the child in these photographs? This is it. This is the moment I've been building toward for 8 years. I stand, my robes pooling around me, and I look directly at my mother for the first time since she sealed me in the dark. That child is me, I say. I am Elena Rosewood. And the defendant is my mother. The courtroom erupts. My mother's face drains of all color. She's half standing, her mouth open, her lawyer pulling at her arm trying to get her to sit down. Madison is sobbing in the witness stand, her hands covering her face. You're supposed to be dead, my mother whispers, loud enough for the microphone to catch. You were supposed to stay dead. There it is. Confession in open court. Not about me. About the narrative she needed. I was supposed to disappear completely, make her life easier, give her the insurance money and the clean slate and the perfect family with only one daughter. Bailiff, I say, my voice cutting through the chaos. Please remove the jury. We're taking a 15-minute recess. Once the courtroom clears of everyone except the necessary personnel, I step down from the bench. My mother is crying now, not the pretty tears she's been using for the jury, but ugly, desperate sobs. Elena, she chokes out, reaching for me. Baby, you have to understand. I was sick. I wasn't in my right mind. I never meant to hurt you. I stop 3 feet away from her. Close enough to see the fear in her eyes. Far enough that she can't touch me. You counted out 423 days, I say, my voice quiet and cold. Madison counted every single day you kept her in the dark. Do you want to know how many days you kept me? My mother shakes her head, still crying. 2,917 days, I say. I counted them all. Every single one. I scratched them into the concrete until the nail wore down to nothing, and then I started memorizing them instead. 2,917 sunrises I didn't see. 2,917 nights I spent convinced I was going to die alone in the dark. I'm sorry, she whispers. I'm so sorry. You're not sorry you did it, I tell her. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry that your victim grew up to become the judge presiding over your trial. You're sorry that this time, the system isn't going to save you. I turn to her lawyer. Your client has just confessed in open court to premeditated kidnapping and fraud. I strongly suggest she consider a plea deal, because when this trial resumes, I'm going to make sure the jury sees exactly what kind of woman she is. You can't do that, my mother's lawyer sputters. You're biased. You need to recuse yourself. You're right, I say. I am biased. Which is why I'm going to do something I should have done 3 weeks ago. I turn to the court clerk. Please note for the record that I am recusing myself from this case, effective immediately. I'll be recommending Judge Michael Torres to take over. He's fair, impartial, and he has a daughter of his own. He'll understand exactly what this case represents. Then I do something I've wanted to do for 26 years. I look my mother directly in the eye and I say, you tried to erase me. You locked me in the dark and told the world I was dead because you wanted my life insurance money and you wanted to pretend you only had one perfect daughter. But I survived. And I became someone who matters. Someone who has the power to make sure you never hurt another person again. Elena, please. You will address me as Judge Morgan, I interrupt. You lost the right to call me your daughter the moment you picked up that drill. I walk back to my bench, gather my files, and prepare to hand this case over to Judge Torres. But before I leave, I look at Madison, still sitting in the witness stand, her face streaked with tears. Madison, I say gently, I'm sorry we didn't get to grow up together. I'm sorry she stole that from both of us. But you're not alone. You survived, just like I did. And when this is over, if you want, I'd like to get to know my little sister. She nods, unable to speak. I see the moment she understands. We're both victims. We're both survivors. And we're both finally free. The case was reassigned to Judge Torres. With my testimony added to Madison's, the jury deliberated for 45 minutes. Guilty on all counts. My mother was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for insurance fraud, kidnapping, and attempted fraud in the second case. She'll be 82 when she gets out. Madison and I meet for coffee once a week now. She's in therapy, working through everything that happened. She tells me stories about growing up, and I listen even though each one is a reminder of everything I missed. She had a childhood. She had birthday parties and Christmas mornings and first days of school. She had everything I didn't. But she also had the same mother. And eventually, that mother showed her true colors. Dr. Morgan was right. My mother tried to bury me. But I didn't stay in the grave she dug. I climbed out and I rose so far above it that when she tried to do it again, I was the one holding the power. People ask me if I feel guilty about not recusing myself earlier. They ask if I compromised the integrity of the court by presiding over my own mother's trial. The answer is complicated. Yes, I should have stepped down the moment I saw her name. But I needed her to see me. I needed her to understand that the child she threw away became someone important, someone who mattered. Some wounds never fully heal. I still can't sleep without lights on. I still count things compulsively. 17 cracks of light became 17 steps from my bed to my bathroom. 17 sips of water before I can fall asleep. 17 deep breaths when I'm having a panic attack. The number 17 is written into my bones now. But I'm not that scared little girl anymore. I'm Judge Elena Morgan, and I used my mother's greatest crime against me to make sure she could never hurt anyone again. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, when the system works the way it's supposed to, they're the same thing.